Welcome to Adekyn Plays Railway Empire. All right, so now we're doing our second video on Railway Empire. In the first one, we looked at a strategy of rapid expansion where we picked up stations as fast as we could and built up basically a passenger and mail income very quickly in order to give us the funds we needed to go ahead and do the campaign mission number two, the one set in the East Coast from Baltimore. And this time we're going to look at the new scenario that they've just put out on this pre-order beta copy. And this scenario is the West. It's specifically the gold rush. So we're kind of mimicking the gold rush of the 1850s out in California and Nevada. And in this, we're going to really focus on building cities. So when we get this started, we'll see the objectives, and it has a lot to do with city building. So in this one, we're going to use a different strategy. This is an opportunity to show you a different strategy on how to play this game. I call this the four cluster strategy, and it's all built around the idea of having four cities that can work together kind of synergistically to help one another grow. So we're going to start out in San Francisco. It says 2 million here. Actually, it only gives you 1 million. It's interesting. And we won't have any competitors on this one to get in our way. So this is considered a medium difficulty. It's actually pretty tough. Looking forward to seeing a hard because you got to work to get this right. So let's move into it. And we're going to stick with the general who gives us the cheaper tracks. Of course, as I said in the other one, there are trade-offs on all these guys, and eventually we'll go through and cover them all. But for now, let's stick with this guy and get our cheaper tracks and work with that. So let's get started. So as I said, we're going to use a four-city cluster. The four cities that we're going to use are our starting city, of course, San Francisco, and then these four that are close by. We have to go to Carson City, and here let me show you the objectives. We have to connect San Francisco, Shasta, and Carson City. We have to transport some freight and passengers. That's just normal. No, that's practically not a requirement. We have to do some gold. Let's take a little, but we just need to connect to Shasta and Carson City. That's where the gold is located. We have to move it back to the bank, Wells Fargo Bank in San Francisco. Produce some alcohol. That's fairly early to do alcohol, so we'll do that. The biggest two in this one really are having this population of 100,000 in Carson City, and then 8 cities that have a population of 80,000. So this is all about city building. That's a good time to use the strategy we're going to be talking about here. So let's get started. So what we're going to do here is use large stations. I'm going to actually build a redundant station here, and the reason being I want to set up a line of stations that are primarily our passenger stations, or basically our point-to-point stations between the cities, and that's going to be this ring that will be, in this case, closer to the mountain. And we're going to start our connections like so. We're going to use this one to connect to Sacramento and then eventually to Carson City. And so let's just start with this guy here and connect over here. I want to save these outer 2 rings for my freight. Yep, that's right. So I want to save these 2 out here for freight, which is going to be handled a little bit differently than our kind of our point-to-point. And by freight, in this case, I mean freight coming into the cities and moving between the cities, like stuff, the items that we need to supply cities with, as opposed to what the cities produce, which will be carried in our middle lines here. Whoops. So let's just straighten this out a little bit. There we go. The more I try to make it better, the worse I make it. Here we go. All right, and then these inner lines, they won't be moving past this city. So for example, we're going to only have this line run specifically from Sacramento to San Francisco. It will never have to go beyond Sacramento out to Shasta or beyond. So it'll just be a point-to-point carrying both passengers and freight in this case between these two cities. So it's the way of moving goods and people between two cities. And I'm saying that you'd say, well, that's obvious, but you'll see the distinction between that and these outer lines in a little bit. So now we've got our, and the reason I'm doing this is I want to totally control these, which track is being used for this so that I don't get traffic jams. And you could do that by specifically naming which platform to use for each line. That gets to be a bit of work. So for these point-to-point that aren't going to have to go any further, we just use this little crossing lane. So we still have effectively double track because we've got our passing lane, if you will, is the entire length of the track. And that way we can control which track is used. So we've got our, we're going to set up our line between Sacramento and San Francisco. Put a train on it. And then we're going to set up the line going the other way. Put a train on that. And then we will copy those. Copy the first one. Copy the second one. Now we have 4 trains running back and forth between these two cities. Then our next step is to go out here and connect Shasta. And we can really connect it to either one of them at this point. And again, I want to save these 2 out here for the inside, the freight that's going to come from this side. So I'm going to be using these 2 right here. And in this case, let's see. We want, this one is free. Excuse me, this one is free. So we'll use it. And go up here, and we've got these 2 to choose from. We'll use that one for this connection. And when I'm building these lines, I don't want these bridges and I don't want tunnels if I can avoid them. They're very costly. The dig out areas I don't care for. They're ugly and they do cost some money, but they don't bother me as much. So we're going to let this, well, we need some more money now. We're down to 123,000, so let's go get some more money. Remember, debt is your friend, particularly early in the game. So we're going to, and to build rapidly, we're going to go into debt rapidly. Now we want to double track this all the way down. Tower in the middle, and then set up our signals. Making sure we make those one-way right drive on the right commands, and then we'll set up our 2 lines just as before. And because this is a longer line, we are going to use more trains. So we used 4 in that first one, and we'll use 6 on this one, and use our same way of copying them. And I copy them rather quickly. I don't worry about spacing them out, because the truth of the matter is, over time, if you've got the right number of trains running on these lines, they will space themselves out. You see they're stacked up right now, but they will. Just the loading and unloading process will space them out properly so that you get a nice long run. The next thing we want to do here is go ahead and set up our, and we've got options now. We can look at connecting Shasta to San Francisco, which would be a good option, or we can, and I think that's what I'm going to do, because what I want to do after that is then move some wheat in to feed this beer. And one thing you want to look at here is we've got what these cities produce. We've got meat, that's redundant, unnecessary, and we definitely don't want that in our 4-city cluster strategy, and beer. So the real sweetheart you want to help these cities grow is beer going to a meat and meat going back to beer, so that they're exchanging goods and helping one another to grow. So Shasta is going to help Sacramento grow. San Francisco is going to be a little less likely to grow in the early stages, because it won't be getting the beer, and we're not bringing in other goods from outside yet. So what we want to do is, a good target strategy, by the way, just as a general thing, is find a beer and a meat producing city and connect those right away, because that's the best way to get your early income going. So I think what we're going to do here next is go ahead and run our San Francisco to Shasta line. And let's see which track we want to use for that. We can use this one. I think we'll use this one, because we'll save this for any goods we want to bring in, any freight that we want to come in from over here into San Francisco. So let's go ahead and use this one and run it. Now we've got one more space here we can use. We can run it to this guy right here. And we'll want to move it back over here on this side of the tracks. And actually, so far this is looking pretty good. We don't want the tunnel. We don't want to get up there in that high ground. So let's go over this way. Then we can actually sync up with our track and ride it in the rest of the way. Looks pretty good. And we'll just let it run until we have 177 plus 30. So we'll get about 200, 210,000. We'll stop and build that track. No, actually anything over 180 will do. Here we go. So we'll build that. Then we're going to double track it. So we're going to come back. The same way we went. And yes, I'm fully aware that I could do shorter, smaller passing lanes and save a lot of money. But the double track is there because I want these trains, I want to be able to load a lot of trains on these lines and really not think about it too much. I don't want to have to think too much about how many passing lanes have I built, and do I have adequate passing lanes to allow these guys to go where they need to go, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm basically running double track, but having a cross and stop like this, again, the risk of being redundant, so that I control the lanes. I only have the one routes running into these various platforms on the stations. So we need 146K plus 30K for the supplies. So we need about 200 now. So let's just let it run until we have 200,000. And that won't take long when we've got these nice lines up here making money, and this line here. And I actually, if you look at how spread these are, I actually think we could do well to bump this up to eight trains running there. And you see they're already loading full, so that was a good move. And we needed, what did we say, about 200. So while we're accumulating the capital, keys to this strategy are direct connection between each of the 4 cities. So that means we need 6 lines. This will give us 3. We've got here to here, here to here, Sacramento to San Francisco, then we've got San Francisco to Shasta, and then we still need Carson City to Shasta, to Sacramento, and to San Francisco. So we need 3 more lines, and those are going to be expensive because you can see we're either going to have to go way around the mountain in either way or through the mountain. Either of those is going to be very expensive. So we want to have a strong economy going before we attempt to make this crossover over the mountain. So now we got to quickly come up with plenty of money. So we've got some research queued up. Let's grab one, and we will build our track. And supply tower and do our signals. Yeah, I've said this before, but I'm not talking too much about the mechanics of how you do this. I will get into some things about how you want to set the signals. It becomes very important. Well, first of all, it is important that you get all these right, that you give adequate spacing between the trains, that you get them all pointed in the right directions, especially that you get these stop on either end to make sure that your trains are always driving on one side or the other. It can be all right or all left, it doesn't matter, but you want to make sure they're going on the correct side. Otherwise, you'll get trains facing each other and your economy will grind to a halt as these trains look at each other. So it is very important, but I'm not going into the mechanics of how this is done too much. And if you need help with that, let me know and I can make a video about how to lay the track. I mean, specifically, how do you actually do this, the track laying that I'm talking about and all this kind of stuff. But I think if you watch the tutorials and just play the game yourself a bit, it'll come to you very easily. And if not, like I said, let me know. I can make a video. So once we get these trains rolling, we'll have 3 of our connections, 3 of our 6 connections all set up. So this one will be Shasta to San Francisco. And San Francisco, oops, wrong one. San Francisco to Shasta. We'll grab an employee while we're at it. And then we'll double click or click the line and start duplicating. And here we're going to run at least 8, possibly 10. All right, we're in debt, so we've got, oh, we already got 7 of them. There's 8. That'll do. We'll do 8 trains. That looks good. And yes, we could be more precise in calculating how many trains we actually need, and we'll get into that at a later date. Right now, we're just ballparking it based on the length of the lines. So now we've got a good profit going, and what we're going to want to do next is bring, well, we can look at we're in the end of 1850, and our goal is to connect, and you can see we're starting to bring in gold. That's coming down from Shasta to San Francisco. We're connecting, we're getting our freight and passengers, we already finished our passengers. And we need to connect to Carson City by 1851. So we've got a year to do that. And it's going to cost us well, let's just see roughly how much it's going to cost us. Anything from here over to here, if we go kind of directly, is like 2 or 3 million. If we go up and around these mountains a little bit, just ballpark, that's a million, and we can smooth that out and probably get it down to under 800 grand certainly. So we need about $1 million to connect, and we may as well go ahead and do that next. Let's go ahead. So what I want to do on these employees as they pop up is actually, I want to put them on my longest line because that's probably where the most money is going to come in. Get the most bang for our buck with those guys like this. Try to keep our research open and ready. And once we get this up to $1 million, you can see how quickly the money is racking up for us. So when we get about $1 million there, Shasta's growing. It'd be nice to put oh, it just hit the 20,000. When it's 40, we can put another business in there. And we definitely, how we manage the businesses in this, remember, we've got our 4 cities. The reason it's 4 cities is because we want to have all 11 industries. There are 11 industries in this game, and ideally you'd like to have all 11 in your 4 cities in your cluster, and it takes 4 cities therefore to cover the 11, and you have 1 redundancy. But we're going to put in our inside passenger lane, like so, and we'll save these 2 inside spaces for freight from the inside, so that gives us this one to work with. It could be sent back. I think what we'll do is we'll run, let's see, we'll run, I like being paused like this, you can think a little bit. We'll run our Shasta run like this, obviously. That's going to be our next connection, Shasta to Carson City. We can run Sacramento either through the mountains, or we could run it along Shasta like this and down. And they both work just fine. And actually, they'll cost about the same, so this will be a lot shorter. So I think we'll probably run it through the mountain. So that means I would like to have, so it'll probably end up being on the second station that gets built here. And I want to keep, as I said, this outside one for freight, and the outside one and probably the inside of this one. Nope, the outside of this one for freight. So a lot of talk to say. Okay. Oh, we still got this guy. Let's run him on down here like this. Forgot we'd left him. And start him. Is that a good spot? That is. That's an excellent spot. So let's see what we can come up with. I say we keep this expensive tunnel so that we have a low incline. We can run faster. Clean up that bridge. Everything looks pretty good, so let's let it run a little bit more. It was a little more expensive than I expected because we're going to keep that tunnel and make a nice fast run up through there. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty steep. Okay, good deal there. Again, we're going to double track it. Like so. And that's going to cost us another 300. So we'll need about 330. Since this is a very long line, we'll put a couple of towers in. Probably not absolutely necessary, but can't hurt anything. And we need our signals, excuse me. Oops, that was a goof. Don't need signals that close to the supplies. Well, might be nice if I hit the right thing. Trying to delete them with the signal mode. There we go. Okay, this is a quite long line, so we are going to run a bunch of trains here. We'll run 10 trains between these two. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's 4 of our 6 connections. So we just got 2 more: Carson City to Sacramento, Carson City to San Francisco to get under control. And at this point, while we're doing it, let's just get an estimate here, so to speak. If we were going from San Francisco to our good buddy Carson City, roughly what would we be looking at? $2.4 million. Now we could tweak it and turn it and twist it and make it a little better than that, I'm sure. That's 1.3 million. That's actually, it's not bad. That's not bad at all. A pretty big bridge right there and a tunnel we don't need. So let's see what happens if we move this a little bit. Now that bridge is keeping us from having too big of an incline here. Let's see what happens if we take it out a little bit. Not too bad. In fact, my only complaint with it is it'd be nice to be able to run the Sacramento through that same line, but I actually do not want to do that. I don't want them to be too close to each other, but that really is the best line for that. So we can get rid of that. Looks like we've got a little too close to the other line here. There we go. 1.3 million. That just isn't bad. Let's just let that go. I want to focus on there's so many things to talk about in this game, so many things. But I want to focus just on our strategy here. So we've got Carson City growing, Shasta's growing, Sacramento's growing, and not surprisingly, San Francisco isn't growing because the gold that's coming in isn't helping it grow. We've forgotten to do our maintenance. It is time to pay up here. Shame on me. We've got to put our maintenance sheds in because we're getting breakdowns all over the place. It just cost us a whole bunch of money. Shame, shame, shame. There we go. So we need 1.3 million. We're almost there. And the second line, the double track for this shouldn't be nearly as bad because we will have the tunnel dug and it'll just be expanding the tunnel. At least that's famous last words, we shall see. And on a different video, I'll get into this whole thing about what I'm doing with these employees and how I'm using them and picking them and putting them on things. It's an area where I need to do a little more study to really get the perfect strategy or the better strategies for it. But I think what I'm doing is semi-intelligent. At least it's based on a rational thought, if nothing else. Okay, so there we got our line. Now we want to run our second line out there. And just hug this one. Sorry, don't mean to make you dizzy. Have I goofed? This didn't look quite right, but I think it is. And there, the first side cost us 1.3 million. The other one's just another 300,000. So we'll let her run and pick up that money. Okay, what do we finish here? There we've got all our initial investment. We've finished our first three tasks. It's September of 1851. We're looking very, very good. And now we have our line, double track line from San Francisco to Carson City, which is going to be another really good money maker for us. And we will put, I think, maybe a couple of supply towers on this one as well. And of course, we need our signals. This part can get quite monotonous. I can't imagine what it's like sitting there where you are watching me do this, but bear with me. And now let's set up our line from Carson City to San Francisco. I lost count there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A lot of trains. That should give us really good coverage. An accountant that we definitely want. And let's start building this one up. It should make really good money for us. So let's put some staff on it. Okay, now we've got one more line we'd like to get. As I said, we could just connect this to this, possibly, and run it across, but I want a separate line, completely separate. So that's going to take another station in Carson City. And we still have this. Pardon me, I'm thinking a little bit. I need another station here, but I also need one of these two lines to move over here because I still want to keep these outside for when we start moving freight. It'll be cleaner if they're outside, if they get both of them and I don't use one of them for my line. Well, I guess I could just go over top. That'll work. Let's just do it that way. Let's just go like this. Go over top. Maybe go up here somewhere. Let's see what we get here. If we come into it like so. Actually, need a little space in here. It's only 1 million. That's not bad. It's not bad at all, actually. Now this one's got some incline to it, so what I'd like to do here is run something with a little more power. And it just so happens I've got him right here. This dragon has 71% tractive power, which is what we need. It's actually a freight train, but it would be good to run for this line I'm thinking about. So again, we need 1 million plus. So let's just let her go. Now we're growing the city some, but not nearly to the extent we could be. And we'll start pumping that up. That'll be our next step. Once we get these all 6 of these lines going and we have good income from that, we'll be able to quickly start moving the outside these wheat and cattle and vegetables and sugar and all this good stuff into this little network we're setting up here, and be able to really start growing these cities. So again, we're good. We can build it and then plan out our second line. I think we'll just start the cross right here. What's that? $243, that's not bad. We need a little more money for our supply depot. There we go. For supply tower. And I'll put it here. And we need signals. Okay. And that looks, I think we could probably run 6 trains through there pretty nicely. So let's go ahead and set up our line from Sacramento. Something's wrong. Oh, from this Sacramento to Carson City. And run a dragon over there. And run one the other way. Run a dragon in that direction. number 3, 4, 5, and 6. There we go. So it's March of 1852. There's a really good one. Well, no, that's not quite it yet. Okay, it's March of 1852. I'm going to pause right here. And we have now set up 4 cities that are all have direct connections between each of the other 3, so that we can run passengers and freight in any combination across them. We have 6 very profitable lines already set up, and I'll open this up and you can see, I'll scroll down the trains, but you can see, with the exception of these ones we just made, which won't be showing a profit, but they will be quite soon. So now, here's the idea. These goods can flow now directly between any of these cities. So what we want to do is, first of all, start deciding where are we going to put these, because you notice all this redundancy. Now we've got textiles, we've got meat, we've got beer. That's fine for now, but as we move up, we need to start adding in lumber and clothing and maybe eventually furniture and pottery and whatever. And we certainly, of course, because of our goals, we need to have alcohol. So that's one thing. We need to have all these things. So we need all these different industries in these cities, and we also need to be moving these goods in to support those industries so that we can get them efficient and growing, and we can control them. And eventually what we want to do is actually own all the industries ourselves, and in fact, ideally own all the farms and mines that are out here that are going to be supplying them with the goods. So that way we're making money on the farm, we're making money moving the goods to the city, we're making money producing the goods in the factory, and we're making money shipping the goods to another city. So we're making money in all phases of the operation. That's how you build a real empire in railway empire. So I think I'm going to stop right there and save this and come back, get this out on YouTube, and then come back with part 2 where we will start adding in freight. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope it helps you become a better player and piques your interest in what I think is going to be a great game, Railway Empire. Thank you.